Greetings, dear listeners. This is Cyrus Cade, freelance investigative reporter, coming to you from the bustling streets of Minneapolis, Minnesota. Tonight, I bring you a tale that will chill you to your very core. A story of desperation, madness, and the echoes of the past that refuse to be silenced. Our journey begins in the sun-scorched landscape of Arizona, where the jagged silhouette of Slaughterhouse Canyon cuts a menacing figure against the horizon. This desolate gorge, once known as Luana's Canyon, holds a dark secret that has haunted the region for over a century. As I delved into the annals of this macabre legend, I couldn't help but feel a familiar tingle of excitement mixed with dread. It's the same sensation that courses through my veins whenever I stumble upon a story that defies rational explanation. And believe me, dear listeners, what I uncovered in the depths of Slaughterhouse Canyon is anything but rational. The year was 1882, and the town of Kingman, Arizona had just been established. The promise of gold had lured countless prospectors to the unforgiving desert, each hoping to strike it rich and carve out their own piece of the American dream. But as we've seen time and time again, dreams can quickly turn to nightmares in the harsh reality of the frontier. Among those who answered the siren call of fortune was a family whose name has been lost to time. They settled in a small wooden shack nestled in the heart of what was then Luana's Canyon. The father, a determined gold miner, would venture out every fortnight in search of the elusive yellow metal that would secure their future. But fate, dear listeners, is a cruel mistress. And in the unforgiving expanse of the Arizona desert, she can be downright merciless. One fateful day, the miner set out on what would be his final expedition. Days turned to weeks and weeks to months, but he never returned. Left alone in the desolate canyon, his wife Luana and their children faced a grim reality: starvation. Now, I've seen my fair share of desperate situations in my years as a reporter, but nothing could have prepared me for the horror that unfolded in that god-forsaken canyon. As I pieced together the fragments of this tragic tale, I couldn't help but imagine the anguish that must have gripped Luana's heart as she watched her children waste away. The canyon walls, once a shelter from the harsh desert sun, became a prison. The very rocks seemed to mock their suffering, amplifying the cries of the starving children until they reverberated through every crevice and hollow. It was then, in the depths of despair, that Luana made a decision that would forever stain the pages of history. With madness clouding her judgment and the incessant wails of her children driving her to the brink, she committed an act so heinous that it defies comprehension. In a moment of unthinkable desperation, Luana took the lives of her own children. But the horror didn't end there, dear listeners. Oh no, it was only the beginning of a nightmare that would echo through the ages. As I stood at the edge of Slaughterhouse Canyon, the wind whispering through the rocks, I could almost hear the ghostly cries of those innocent souls. The very air seemed thick with sorrow and regret. Legend has it that after her unspeakable act, Luana, driven mad by grief and guilt, chopped the bodies of her children into pieces. The walls of their humble shack, once a haven of family life, were splattered with the blood of the innocent. It was this gruesome scene that would later earn the canyon its chilling moniker, Slaughterhouse. But Luana's torment was far from over. In a final act of desperation, she gathered the remains of her children and cast them into the nearby river. As the last pieces disappeared beneath the murky waters, Luana collapsed on the riverbank, her wedding dress now a grotesque canvas of blood and dirt. Throughout the night, her anguished wails echoed through the canyon, a haunting lament for the lives she had taken and the future she had destroyed. When dawn broke, Luana's lifeless body was found on the very spot where she had disposed of her children's remains. As I delved deeper into this chilling tale, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story than met the eye. Something about the way the locals spoke of Slaughterhouse Canyon in hushed tones, their eyes darting nervously as if expecting to see a spectral figure materialize at any moment, told me that the horror of Luana's tale was far from over. Determined to uncover the truth, I set out to explore the canyon myself. As I made my way down the treacherous path, the oppressive heat of the Arizona sun beating down on my back, I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease creeping up my spine. The canyon walls loomed above me, their jagged edges casting long shadows that seemed to reach out with ghostly fingers. Every step I took echoed ominously, as if the very rocks were whispering long-forgotten secrets. As I reached the bottom of the canyon, the site where Luana's tragic tale unfolded, an eerie stillness descended upon the area. The air grew thick and heavy, making it difficult to breathe. And then, dear listeners, I heard it. A sound that made my blood run cold. A child's laughter, faint but unmistakable, drifted on the wind. I spun around, searching for the source, but found myself alone in the desolate landscape. And yet, the laughter persisted, growing louder with each passing moment. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream pierced the air, causing me to stumble backward in shock. The scream was followed by another and another, until the entire canyon was filled with a cacophony of agonized wails. Heart-pounding, I scrambled to escape the nightmarish scene. But as I turned to flee, I found myself face to face with a sight that will haunt me for the rest of my days. There, standing before me, was the spectral figure of a woman in a tattered wedding dress, her face contorted in a mask of madness and grief. In her arms, she cradled what appeared to be the broken bodies of children, their lifeless eyes staring accusingly at me. I let out a scream of my own, my feet carrying me away from the horrifying apparition as fast as they could. As I ran, the sounds of laughter and screams intermingled, creating a hellish symphony that seemed to follow me out of the canyon. It wasn't until I reached the safety of my rental car that I dared to look back. The canyon stood silent once more, as if nothing had happened. But I knew, deep in my bones, that I had witnessed something beyond the realm of rational explanation. In the days that followed, I threw myself into researching the history of Slaughterhouse Canyon, desperate to make sense of what I had experienced. I pored over old newspaper articles, interviewed local historians, and even consulted with paranormal experts. What I uncovered, dear listeners, was a web of tragedy and darkness that stretched far beyond Luana's tale. It seems that Slaughterhouse Canyon has long been a focal point for inexplicable phenomena. Native American legends speak of it as a place where the veil between worlds is thin, a gateway for spirits both benevolent and malevolent. During the gold rush, numerous prospectors met untimely ends in the canyon's unforgiving terrain. Some fell victim to the harsh elements, while others succumbed to madness brought on by isolation and failed dreams of wealth. But it was Luana's tragic story that seemed to have awakened something far more sinister in the canyon. Reports of strange occurrences began to surface shortly after her death. Travelers passing through the area reported hearing the cries of children echoing through the night. Others claimed to have seen the ghostly figure of a woman in a blood-stained wedding dress wandering the canyon floor. As the years passed, the legend of Slaughterhouse Canyon grew, attracting thrill-seekers and paranormal enthusiasts from across the country. But those who ventured into the canyon often left with more than they bargained for. In 1932, a group of college students on a camping trip disappeared without a trace after spending a night in the canyon. Their belongings were found scattered around their campsite with no signs of struggle or foul play. To this day, their fate remains a mystery. In 1957, a local rancher reported seeing a group of spectral children playing near the river where Luana had disposed of her children's remains. When he approached them, they vanished into thin air, leaving behind only the echo of their laughter. But perhaps the most chilling incident occurred in 1978, when a team of paranormal investigators set up equipment in the canyon to record any supernatural activity. What they captured on their audio devices was a series of horrifying screams, followed by a woman's voice repeating the words, "I'm sorry," over and over again. The investigators fled the canyon in terror, their equipment inexplicably malfunctioning. When they later reviewed the footage, they were shocked to find that their cameras had captured the image of a woman in a wedding dress standing among the rocks, her face a mask of anguish and madness. As I delved deeper into these accounts, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Even in the safety of my hotel room, miles away from Slaughterhouse Canyon, I felt a presence lurking just beyond the edge of my vision. One night, as I sat poring over my notes, a chill ran down my spine. The temperature in the room seemed to drop suddenly, and I could have sworn I heard the faint sound of a child's laughter coming from the darkened bathroom. Heart pounding, I approached the bathroom door, my hand trembling as I reached for the light switch. As the fluorescent bulb flickered to life, I let out a gasp of horror. There, written in what appeared to be blood on the bathroom mirror, were the words, "Help us." I stumbled backward, my mind reeling from the implications of what I was seeing. Had the spirits of Slaughterhouse Canyon followed me? Or was I losing my grip on reality, succumbing to the same madness that had claimed Luana over a century ago? As I grappled with these questions, dear listeners, I began to uncover a pattern that chilled me to my very core. It seemed that those who delved too deeply into the mystery of Slaughterhouse Canyon often met with tragedy themselves. Journalists who had attempted to investigate the legend had their careers mysteriously derailed. Paranormal researchers who spent too much time in the canyon reported experiencing vivid nightmares and unexplained physical ailments. And then there were the disappearances. Over the years, dozens of people had vanished without a trace in or around Slaughterhouse Canyon. Some were tourists who had wandered off the beaten path, while others were locals who should have known better than to venture into the cursed gorge. As I connected the dots, a terrifying realization began to take shape. What if the tragedy of Luana and her children was just the beginning? What if their restless spirits had awakened something far more ancient and malevolent in the canyon? The more I uncovered, the more convinced I became that Slaughterhouse Canyon was more than just a site of paranormal activity. It was a nexus of dark energy, a place where the boundaries between our world and the next had been irreparably damaged. And now, dear listeners, I fear that by pursuing this story, I may have drawn the attention of whatever malevolent force resides in that godforsaken place. Strange occurrences have followed me since my return to Minneapolis. Objects in my apartment move of their own accord. The laughter of children echoes through my halls in the dead of night. And more than once, I've caught a glimpse of a figure in a tattered wedding dress reflected in my windows. But perhaps the most disturbing development came just yesterday. As I was reviewing my notes on the case, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. The names of the missing people I had uncovered in my research, they spelled out a message. When arranged in the order of their disappearances, the first letter of each name formed a chilling sentence. Cyrus Cade, you are next. As I sit here now, recording this broadcast, I can't shake the feeling that I'm being watched. The shadows in the corners of my studio seem to writhe and twist, taking on grotesque shapes that vanish when I try to focus on them. And in the background, just barely audible, I can hear the faint sound of a woman weeping. I don't know what will happen next, dear listeners. But I fear that by uncovering the truth about Slaughterhouse Canyon, I may have sealed my own fate. If this is to be my final broadcast, let it serve as a warning to all who might be tempted to explore the dark mysteries of that accursed place. Some secrets are better left buried, and some stories are not meant to be told. For in the depths of Slaughterhouse Canyon, the past is never truly dead, and the echoes of tragedy continue to resonate through time. This is Cyrus Cade, signing off. Perhaps for the last time.
Thanks for joining us in the shadows tonight. If you enjoyed these chilling tales, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more spine-tingling stories every week. Have you got a story of your own? Share it in the comments below. We love hearing from you. And remember, the darkness holds many secrets. Are you brave enough to uncover them? Until next time, keep your lights on and your doors locked. Sweet nightmares.